therapist, everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few cases. I mean, there's similar things, but everybody's different. So it's not just the one, over and over again. So
Absolutely.
you don't get bored with it. And I was very interested in psychology. I still am. And so the difference between the two jobs, one was boring when you learn something and you're doing it and you're good at it, and then you need to move on. And I did that within NSA many times. Learning new software, learning new techniques, new computers, whatever. So, but then it would get boring. So I agree with you. I've been the kind of person that my whole life I can't be bored. If I'm bored, I have to move on.
Yeah.
I just cannot deal with it.
That's pretty much where I'm at too.
Yeah. And in the government, if you're reasonably healthy and good at your job, you're taking away from the technical stuff, and you come into becoming a manager. And the first level of management, if you want to, you can still do technical stuff, which I did, and helped people that worked with me, the programmers and technicians. But then you get up to the next level,
And you're just managing.
you're just managing, which means you're not doing much
Yeah.
at all.
Because they can pretty much manage themselves.
Yeah, and that was my attitude: is they're grown-ups. What do I have to tell them? What am I supposed to do? Send it bed early or something? I don't know.
They went to school for this too. So.
Yeah, and so I understand that. So what do you think? I'm surprised to hear that MDs would tell you don't be a doctor, because in the 50s and 60s, they would tell you, oh, be a doctor, And there were people that wanted me to be a doctor. But number one, I think I'd be bored. But number two, I cannot stand cutting people up and the diseases and that sort of thing. I just can't deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been a weird experience for me too, because you see all these movies and everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. And it seems like this whole life story thing. And then you actually meet doctors, or I have been meeting doctors, and they're like, yeah, our job isn't that great. Like, you have to be attached to your job, and you have to do all this school, and you end up coming out of it and helping people who aren't willing to help themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And in therapy, it got worse, At one time, people that came, they needed help, and they have to do it. It's their job. It's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
I just
You just kind of guide them towards that way.
Exactly. And most of the people, it would work, but then over the years, through generational changes, people just wanted medicine.
Mm-hmm.
If they were depressed, they wanted medicine. They didn't want to understand why they were depressed. So it got to a point where, like you said, if people don't want to help themselves,
yeah, it's pretty hard to help them.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand that. So, what do you think you want to do?
I think I want to be an engineer, specifically Engineers Without Borders, which is pretty much the equivalent of Doctors Without Borders, but I would go to these third world countries and I would help install sanitation systems and water systems and make bridges, pretty much just put in place the infrastructure that they need.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. So you like to travel?
I love traveling.
Uh-huh. Have you done some?
Yeah. I lived in Alaska for 8 years, so we travel up there every summer, and then I went on a trip to Costa Rica in 7th grade, and we sailed around Belize in 9th grade, and we took our boat up the Inside Passage up to Alaska one year. So I've actually, unfortunately, never been to like Europe or anything like that, though. So I want to remedy that if possible.
Good, yeah. My wife and I like to travel, so most of it has been in Europe. And when we first met, she would pick a place to go, and it was always out of the country. And then the next summer, I'd pick a place. And I always liked, the mountains of different, and especially out west. So that's what we did, and it worked out. And she was born, in Washington, D.C., and didn't travel until, she was an adult. And then when we got married, and for us, it was our second marriage. And so our kids were grown to the point where we didn't have to take babies with us or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, easy travel. And I suggested that, and people are people no matter where you go. The bottom line is people are people. And if you open up and try to understand them, you begin to like them, and they'll like you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just miracle what they'll do, even though they're so foreign, and they may not like the United States, but you as a person they'll get to like. So I strongly recommend to travel, and we saved our money for that. Other people were getting bigger houses and that sort of thing, but we saved it for a trip every summer. And yeah. So we have no regrets.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So where do you think you want to? What year are you in?
I'm 2005, so I'm graduating 2023 next year.
Oh, okay. So you're just a year and a half away.
Yep.
Like 3 semesters or less.
Yep.
2 and a
more
half.
like
2 and a half.
2 and a
Half.
eighth, really, at this
But
point.
who counts?
Yeah. No, I'm totally not counting. No.
Where are you going?
I actually have a team up in Alaska for hockey that I plan on playing on. So that's kind of my plan right now. And then from there, I'll go to college, maybe take a gap year. We'll see.
So you play hockey?
Yep. Hockey, mountain bike. It's kind of my thing.
Good for you. I've always liked athletics. So I think from the time I was in the first grade, I started playing. And I'm an Army brat, so we traveled all over, And we were in Germany, and when we were in Germany, they had a couple of ponds near us, and they used them to cut ice for the ice houses. But they would go from pond to pond to pond, and so where a pond was frozen over, we would play hockey. And I was kind of like the hero because my uncle in Springfield, Massachusetts, where I was born, and your mother's father was born in Springfield, and he could get me hockey pucks, so that, and other hockey equipment, so I was kind of like a hero, big deal on campus. And yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for my philosophy project,
What's the project?
I'm doing a philosophy project.
Oh,
it's
okay.
called My Life on Earth, and kind of my main thing that I'm focusing on is like there are plenty of people who have lived full, remarkable lives on Earth and have lessons that need to be taught, and that I want to listen to. So I made a couple questions, if that's okay if I ask them. Is that okay?
As long as they're appropriate.
Okay. I'm pretty sure they are.
Well, we'll find out.
If you don't want to answer any of them, just say that too. Or need a second to think about it, that's fine also.
Okay.
What?
When I worked for NSA, I had to get a uh, what's that called? I'm getting old and forget things. Where they hook you up and see if you're lying or not.
Oh yeah. I actually don't know what that's called either, but I know what you're talking about.
Every 5 years I had to do that. So, I'm used to answering questions.
And what were the questions?
Well, basically they wanted to know if you were doing anything illegal or anything that you could be blackmailed for.
Oh.
Because if you could be blackmailed, then in those days it was Russia that had a lot of spies, and basically that was it. So I had a close friend that started seeing another woman, and they called me in and asked me if I knew about it. I said, no, I don't know about it. But anyway, they called him in, and then they told him if he wanted to keep the job, then he would have to tell his wife, and the other woman would have to come in, that sort of thing. So they've dug it pretty deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't let things get by.
No, they don't. They don't. And, anything, if you stole something, I don't know. There's so many. I'm kind of like a straight arrow. I don't know a lot about crime other than my wife and I see a lot of detective stories on TV, and now we could be detectives. And the story starts and says, oh, they're not supposed to do that. They're walking in, they're destroying all the evidence. Get them out of there, But, yeah, I'm a straight arrow, and vanilla kind of guy, I did have a motorcycle, but I wasn't dangerous on it or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you ready for the first one?
Yes, ma'am.
What would you never regret having done that you did? Like, what's something that, looking back, you'll never regret?
I don't regret leaving home when I was 16.
Awesome. Why did you leave home when you were 16?
I came from a dysfunctional family, and it was at the point where I knew I had to leave, and I've been that way all my life. I know what I need and what's good for me and what's bad for me. And when things are bad for me, I will leave no matter what it costs. I just won't stay in a dangerous situation for me. And I knew at 16, and I knew before that. I had a sister who was in nurses training school, but she failed out. And I waited until she came home because I had 2 younger brothers. So I was kind of defending them, taking up for them. So when she came, then I split. And it was, I'll never regret it. I've done many best things in my life, and that was one of the best things. From there, everything went step by step, piece by piece, to where I am now,
Awesome. Okay, what's one memory that makes you laugh?
One memory that makes me laugh. Oh my gosh.
You can choose more than one too.
I can't tell you all. I can't tell you the first one that pops in mind. Let's see. I didn't have a lot of happy memories. They were not happy memories. So I didn't have any in childhood. Okay, we lived in Germany, and I went to school we lived in a dorm away from home during the week, and we would go home on weekends. And my roommate was a year older than me. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. And he really didn't like to associate with me. He associated with all the juniors and seniors. He wanted to be with them. And he was, he could do that. He was really, into being friendly and that sort of thing. But anyway, he had he had the leg amputated. He was somewhere in a playground on one of the, you know, Fort Knox or somewhere, and he stepped on a landmine, and it took his leg off. So at an early age, so he was always playing with it, you know. So one day we had a game that we had to take a bus to, and we got seats right behind the driver. So he took his leg off. He put it on the bar, you know, that's behind the first row and the driver. And he would wiggle it, and the driver thought it was real, you know. So the driver slapped it, grabbed it, and So that's probably one of the funny things in high school. Yeah.
If you had one piece of wisdom to leave for anyone, what would it be and why? Again, take your time thinking about.
Learn who you are, and that takes a long time. But each step of the way, be honest to yourself, that person, and never ever give that piece of you up for anything. And the people you will love will never ask you to give up anything, you know, so you don't have to worry about saying, well, what if, you know, my mother did this or that or the other thing. That'll never happen, you know. You never have to give a piece of yourself up. And I think you're doing it now when you think about what you want to do, you know, an engineer without borders. And that's going to become part of you, of who you are. You know, you get the engineer, the mathematician, it's going to become part of you, you know. And if you're building a bridge or something and somebody offers you, you know, $300,000 to give specs so that they can get material that isn't appropriate for that bridge, you don't do it.
Yeah.
You don't give up that piece of you. Say, I'm an engineer. I'm not a crook. I'm an engineer. So, you know, that's my advice. And the problem is that criminals get away with stuff all the time, and you will see it. And someday you may wonder, you know, why am I doing this for $100,000 a year, and this guy over here just made $1 million by doing whatever he did. But in the end, you know, I've been tested, so to speak. But in the end, I can look in the mirror, and I know who I am, and I'm proud of myself. And that's important. It may be the most important thing there is to me, you know, the love for my family, that's important. But having that feeling of self, that I'm a good person. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I like to imagine that the people who sold that part of themselves, like, regret it in the end. Because, like, it's not like you're taking your money with you.
Well, it isn't. But their conscience also. Unless they're a sociopath. But their conscience is going to get to them. Their family, you know, their wife or husband is going to know who they are. And their children. And so, yeah. But as far as the money part, they never know when to stop. The people that want money and do it, you know, as criminals, they never stop. $1 million isn't enough. 100 million isn't enough. $1 billion isn't enough. Really, you know, it just isn't enough. That's what they're all about. I think your idea of engineer without borders, when you're helping people, there isn't a better feeling when you help. There isn't a better feeling than when you help people. So when you do a hut or whatever and it's finished and you see this family moving in, that's going to be your moment. That's your prize. And the only way you get that prize is to work for it. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. What is one happy memory?
One happy memory. I think the birth of my children, both of them, were happy memories. It was just happiness, happy memory. And it was with my first wife, you know. But those were the happiest memories, those two things. Yeah. And I wanted children, you know. I don't know, maybe to correct my mistakes or whatever, but I wanted children. And I like being a father. So yeah, those were my two happiest memories.
Awesome. What do you remember doing when you were my age that you'll never... Oh, I guess you kind of already answered that one. You moved out.
Do you want to ask it again for the...
No, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, done with the questions I had pre-recorded. Pre-done. Let's see. Why do you think therapy was so fulfilling?
Huh?
Why do you think, like, doing therapy and being a part of therapy was so fulfilling?
Because psychologically, in a normal situation, from the beginning of birth on, you follow a course of psychological development. And if you're in the right country, with the right family, in the right schools, and the country's doing well, then you're on track. And you don't ever realize what it's like not to be on track. But for those of us that grew up and we weren't on the right track, we had traumas. And we had traumas, you know, and if you have a lot of pain, then you have something called a defense mechanism, which shuts off that pain, but it also shuts off the feelings of love. So you're on a different track. And then other things happen. And eventually you're doing some of these things to cause your own problems. So when you get into therapy, you start where you are, and if you're in a psychoanalytic therapy, which I was, it's an in-depth therapy. So you're working to go backwards in time and begin to understand what you did, what you thought, what the trauma was, and learning that today I don't have to live in that trauma anymore. And you have a therapist there that you trust, and they kind of hold your hand through these painful and scary places to guide you through, though, so you don't stop, you know. So you keep going back, and eventually, like I said, you get to the point where you know who the people around you were, what they did, what was inappropriate, what was abuse, what was
Thank you very
Yeah,
much for
yeah.
talking to me, and
Sure. I'm glad to do it.
I really appreciate it.